Welcome back to Relationship Rescue. I'm your host, Valery Molone, and today we're diving into one of the hardest but most important conversations we can have. What it really means to cut ties with toxic people, especially when those people are family. Joining me is the incredible Dr. Sherrie Campbell, a clinical psychologist, author, and leading voice on navigating narcissistic abuse. If you've ever felt guilted into maintaining unhealthy relationships or struggled with the idea of going no contact, this episode is a game changer. Dr. Sherrie doesn't hold back. We talk about setting boundaries that actually protect you, recognizing emotional manipulation, and how to rebuild your sense of self when you've been torn down by the people who were supposed to love you the most. Whether you're healing from a toxic parent, sibling, or partner, this is a conversation you won't want to miss. Let's get into it. Dr. Sherrie, welcome to Relationship Rescue. So happy to have you here today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be on your show.
Oh my God, I'm so excited to have you because we were announcing that you were coming. So a lot of our listeners are very excited and they send a lot of
Hi,
questions. Yes,
I'm so excited.
they send a lot of questions, but and I'm a huge fan of yours and I follow your work.
Thank you.
You're an amazing person and the work that you do, the family that you help, it is so important. But
Thank
for our
you.
listeners, like I said, you have a very impressive introduction that we said about you. I'm going to start with something that I listen always you talked about is low effort family. What
Mhm.
is that?
So I actually just coined this term in my office. I made it up because when people hear big words like toxic, narcissistic, abuse, or neglect, they will naturally go, well, I wasn't like neglected, right? So CPS was called on my family at two when I was two for the neglect of me. And I've boomer parents, and I've always found that when I say emotional neglect, it lands as too direct. And the way the brain works is the brain pays attention to the last word that we hear. And like if you're in the court of law, that's why the state has to go last, right? Because this just neurolinguistic programming. So when we think of neglect, unfortunately, because of how we're educated on it growing up, we think of like no money, we think of no clothes, we think of food stamps, we think of, um, unavailable parenting perhaps, but that there's really no income. There's no, you're not going to have a family that sends you to the greatest schools in the nation, but they also don't give you any emotional attention. So, in trying to kind of come up with how would I describe my own family, because there was income. Um, and I just thought, well, I'll try out low effort because effort is so important in relationships. And then I went viral and I was like, whoa, 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 whoa. You guys, I did not expect to go viral. And so I just thought I would do maybe 3 videos on low effort. And then I was just going viral and viral and 1.6 million views. And I'm like, whoa, whoa, whoa. So I started really peeling through the comments and I was seeing myself in so many of the different comments. And so I've been shaping this new sort of theory on low effort. And that's kind of how I came up with it. I made it up. Um, and I've had to do that a lot in all of my books because so much of what I've read or learned doesn't fit for me as far as even a diagnosis or why I don't have generalized anxiety. So I made up a term called foundational anxiety. I'm afraid my bottom is going to fall out because I grew up in a family where there were 9 marriages between both parents. So that's kind of how I came up with it.
It's perfect. It's perfect. I didn't know what that's what it means, but I want listeners to know what that means. And it's like
Yeah.
a very soft term, which I love about it
I
because
think
it
it's
doesn't
soft.
provoke you.
Yeah, I think it's soft. I think it's approachable. I think it allows permission.
Yes.
If you grew up in a family where there were finances and you had many of your things paid for, but yet they didn't come to Parents' Day at college, or they didn't remember your birthday, or they didn't care for it, or you suddenly became a burden, or the money they gave was supposed to substitute for love. So now if you want anything more, you're ungrateful. It's all of those details in the fabric that I think have allowed people this permission to really look at, okay, they're not bad, they're just low effort. I wasn't neglected. My parents don't need to be going to jail. But low effort is a form of emotional neglect. It's just a more approachable way, I think, to
Right.
look at it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So let's go back to you. What inspired you to help people kind of like remove themselves from a toxic relationships?
Well, the family that I grew up in, and I would say the cult I grew up in, that I was in for four and a half decades. I've been out for 9 years. In fact, yesterday was my rebirth day. So June 12th, 9 years ago, was when I got cut off, and I didn't mend the fence. And my family has always cut me off, and my job was always to mend the fence, and I just ran out of the bandwidth to do it. I took a lot of abuse for the first 5 years on boundary testing, sadistic abuse, cut out of trusts left for my daughter, um, by my grandmother, all kinds of things. So I just continued to stay quiet. I was in therapy, navigating how to work through this. And I was recognizing that books were falling very, very short of helping me. Um, so my parents aren't emotionally immature. I can tolerate some level of emotional immaturity. I cannot tolerate abuse. And I was abused. And so I just never went back. And I thought how alone I felt and having to face when they die one day, which I have. How do you do that? What happens? Am I bad? And I wrote, uh, I've got 3 books on toxic family. I've got another one that's going to be coming out in April, that was just submitted for publishing, and they're super excited about it. I am too. It's actually my favorite book of all the books I've written. And then I made it all the way to the TEDx stage on this topic.
Yeah.
And I just never knew that I wasn't alone, let alone that I was really not alone. How many people are going through this. And I'm the first expert to write about no contact as an option in the family system.
Which is a very, very, very heavy subject.
Oh,
That the
horrible. Yeah.
word family is very heavy, and let alone thinking that your family is toxic, let alone to going. Because I have not spoken to my family for about 32 years.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I know exactly how family toxic function and what they do and how horrible it is to feel alone. I was one of the middle one. So and to me, it's really important when you go through it, right? When you go through it and you feel it, like you said, and I love what you said, that you felt alone.
Yeah.
A lot of people feel that, oh my God, maybe it's my fault. Maybe I did something wrong. So
Mhm.
that's what we're trying to tell people, that you're not alone. And it shows on you by comments people putting on every video that you put, every book that
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
post out, and
Yeah.
people reading it. So a lot of our listeners are struggling with setting boundaries with family, especially parents. How can someone start cutting the tie without feeling guilty?
So I would just try to accept guilt as a part of it. In my most recent book on emotionally abusive parents, I will say that not all guilt is created equal. Healthy guilt is very empowering. I mean, it makes us want to do better, right? We have
Right.
healthy guilt, we want to do better. And that is when we're feeling guilty for a mistake we made that we know we made, right? But maladaptive guilt is when an outside force forces us to feel guilty about something we did not do. And so the laws that run only from child to parent is children are not allowed in the rules of societal cognitive dissonance to cut ties from their parents. They owe their parents this life. Parents can cut off their children and call it tough love and get away with it every day. But a child cannot do that to their parent without this whole societal, which doubles the dose of our pain rather than giving us the antidote. Because when a child wants to cut off, society goes, what do their parents need? Do their parents need resources? Do their parents need therapy? How can we help this parent? Why are you not helping the actual victim? Why are we not concerned what the survivor needs, what the child needs, what resources they need for help? If a child gets to a point where they want to cut off, they were left no other choice. So you have to work through the maladaptive guilt, and you have to be aware that it's maladaptive. It is not wrong to cut off any person who is abusing you. If your parents are abusive, they were abusers prior to you ever showing up. They maintained their abusive nature throughout the raising of you, and they will continue to abuse, guilt, manipulate, and control you long after you leave home. You have to sort of realize that you didn't come from them. You came through them to have your own individual life, just a portal. They got you here, and it's up to you to live your individual life. If they want to cut your feet off and not allow you your individuality, which is your right, and they find your independence an affront to their control over you, that's not healthy parenting. If you had a love partner treating you in that way, not allowing you to be independent, not allowing you to have your own life, everyone would tell you to run and cut him off. I just didn't understand why the rules wouldn't apply to all relationships, because you can slap the title of parents on both my parents. It has no effect on changing their character or their abusive traits.
I think there's a societal expectation to honoring your family. That is
It's
what,
biblical. It's actually biblical. It says that in many religious texts.
yeah,
So, I mean, I was not raised in religion. I don't have a judgment of religion one way or another. I treat many people in my office. I can see it be a really good thing, and then I have other people coming in and the religion really harmed them. So it's hit or miss with religion, right? But
right.
society is based on those sort of doctrines. And but there are many other elements in the Bible that say, if there's no repentance, then there's no forgiveness. So you have to work your way through all of that stuff. For me, forgiveness never even entered the equation. The math doesn't math for me for cutting ties. Me forgiving kept me abused for 45 years. So it worsened my issues. The more I forgave, the more they abused me. I became a joke to them. So forgiveness for me, I realize this is not the right formula I'm using to help myself, because when I forgive them, they lose respect for me and I get even more abused because I'm forgiving what they're not sorry for, and I'm forgiving abuse that I shouldn't be taking, and they know it. So if I keep forgiving, then they just keep running me over. I had to work more toward acceptance, radical acceptance. I had to accept them for exactly who they were, and I needed to not need them to be different. I could want them to be different. There are still days I would love to have it to be different, but I have to go back to this is who they are, and this is who they're always going to be, and I need to accept that and continue moving on.
I'm so happy you said that because forgiveness and acceptance is two different things. Because when
Very
you,
different.
oh my God, when you look at it, forgiveness is just like, and they get away with it. And we enable
Always.
more other people to behave that way because they get away with it and say, okay, you forgive me as good. It's not like they're changing. But by accepting, you just saying that whatever I went through, I can't change that, but I'm accepting who I am and who they are, and there's nothing I can do about it.
That's 100%. We cannot change other people. As I was getting educated, I made the really stupid mistake of being like, oh my gosh, like now I know all of this stuff and I'm going to tell them and they will see it and we're going to have like this big moment. No, no, it made everything way worse. It started turning into anytime we talked, and I even would say my side, my mom would be like, well, you're the shrink. I guess you know everything now. I
Correct.
mean, nothing works. Okay. So I just feel like maladaptive guilt is something you need to learn about. And when you have an awareness of something, you get better at going, wait, this guilt is maladaptive. You have to remind yourself it is not wrong for me to cut off any person who's abusing me. We're not
Right.
wrong to do that.
So, what are some sign in a family dynamic that is emotionally abusive, even if there is no obvious yelling or violence?
So, for example, my mom saying, "You're the shrink. I guess you know everything."
Wow.
Snide comments, passive aggressive digs, the narcissistic stare, not showing up, putting no effort into you, but then putting high effort into someone else in the family or their friends or their job. So you 100% know that they're capable, but they're just not going to give it to you. Being left out, ostracized, ignored, then suddenly love bombed. And then siblings aren't getting along because everybody's being torn apart. Um, there's a million billion signs, but the bottom line is that you have no voice and you have to go along to get along, knowing the most toxic person in the dynamic will always be the least confronted.
So, when was your breaking point that you said to yourself that this is not healthy, this is not right, and I have to do something about it?
I was 45. Uh, I had no contact at 42 for about 5 months. Um, Went back in, at least with my mother. I've never talked to my brother or father since my 42nd birthday because they gang up warfared me on that birthday. But I did 3 years, have my mom in my life for 3 more years. Um, and I learned over those 3 years that she really hates it if I have nice things. And the more successful I was becoming, the more she hated me. Whereas the more successful my brother became, the more she adored him. And I was like, what is going on? Like, why does this formula, no matter what I freaking do, it's like never gonna work. I'll never be good enough for her. And a really small event happened, and they followed the wrong car to a restaurant, but I just got my first really nice car, and she didn't buy anything for me, so she couldn't use it over me. I think my mom's goal was to actually keep me financially dependent because she was on her mother her whole life. And that gave a lot of control, right?
Right.
And I didn't. I bought my own home in California on my own money. I get taking money from her was so painful because I'd get so abused for taking it after she'd give it without me asking. I'd still get abused for it. So I was like freaking nuts. So I was like, I don't want anything. Please, God, don't even give me a Christmas present. Just I want nothing. Um, and I think she was so incensed that I'd gotten this car, and it was like the lowest level Mercedes you could buy. But I was finally having a child that wasn't going to be eating fish crackers and kicking the back of the seat and all those wonderful years that you have with your children. And I'm like, woo, I got a girly car. And she tried to tell me the airbags would kill me and my daughter, that she saw a commercial about it. She said, I was like, so you really think the company like Mercedes is not going to let me know? Like, she's like, well, you're blonde and pretty. They're not going to tell you. I'm like, I don't know if you've been to California because I know you have. There's a more beautiful blonde on me than literally every corner. Like they're not going to target me and my car. And so I think that she got incensed that they got lost and she turned it into this, I think I'm hot shit. And she attacked me in front of my daughter. Her fourth husband attacked me, and I was done. I don't know what happened. It's like this big bag of rocks. She'd been putting rocks in it my whole life because it by far was not our worst fight. Um, and that last rock, it just broke the bag. But she did cut me off. And she let me know I was cut off by not telling me that her flight was leaving, but telling my daughter. And then I found out that she was calling my ex husband, who she hated, hadn't talked to in 10 years, and was trying to develop a relationship with him now behind my back to see my daughter without my permission.
Wow.
So that was it for me. And 6 months after all that happened, she tried to send me a Christmas present that she sent broken, with no gift receipt, not packed as fragile, and she's one heck of a packer. So I was like, oh God, if I send it back, she's going to say I broke it and she's going to show everyone. And I just threw it away.
And this is the example of what I just asked you before. What are some signs without being, yelling or being violence? And it's just like it hits you in the core.
All of these things, they're so covert, right? They're all so covert. Um, for 4 years, I received very sadistic gifts, and the messaging was sadistic. It's like she sent me a statue of a mom swinging around a daughter fractured at the base. It's like then she did it to my daughter for my daughter's 16th birthday. She unwrapped the gift, took the main piece off of the jewelry and repacked it. No gift receipt. So these were all her ways to get me to break the no contact, was to send me things that were broken with no way to replace or return them, so that I'd only have one resource to call. And I finally just sent her a letter: please stop sending gifts and cards or they're going to be returned or donated. And at that point, the rest of my family cut me off. So that's what happened.
And then some point, I guess she knew the retaliation of how you're going to behave, and she knew exactly what button to push in order to get you to that emotional level to react.
Yeah, and my therapist said, we're done. She acted out on your daughter. She cannot now start sending gifts to your daughter to hurt you. So I had been quiet for 5 years of these gifts, post no contact. Um, and I have such a small family that there was only two other family members that could cut me off. And I didn't care at that point. I didn't care. And who I've become in the last 9 years, I could never be me had I still had any amount of that poison coming into my body. Because from 30 to about 45, I tried low contact, I tried cordial contact, I tried all the things I could hang my hat on, that I'm a good daughter, I forgave, I'm trying, I'm doing this. And at the end of the day, I wasn't left any other choice. So, and my life is so happy now. I mean, I'm just genuinely happy. Do I have moments where like you miss your family or having a mom? I miss having a mom. I don't miss my mom, but I do miss having a mom. So there's still that going on, and there's flying monkeys landing a few times a year, which is so interesting. I find them very entertaining. Because they're all so interested, and I don't think about them anymore. I'm like, I don't think about you. There's no need for you to think about me. I want no involvement in all the things, just all of you. Go away. So,
No, but thank you so much for sharing this story, because a lot of our listeners, or all listeners, are young adults, and they're like in the trap of like you said, honoring and cultural expectation of a parents, because like I said, it's a hard subject, and it's a very heavy. So between the culture and, like you said, religion, and between you going and realizing what it is to be a good parents or not parents, and not feeling guilty, accepting yourself, that's a lot of process that a lot of people just put under the rug and don't deal with it, and just keep going with it. So by hearing your stories, they have to realize that, hey, like you said, no matter who they are, any person that is toxic in your life must go.
yeah. Yeah. In my TED talk, I say that, it's like being checked into the Hotel California when you're born. You get checked in, but you're never allowed to check out, even when you had no choice in the choosing of who your parents would be. Reminder, they chose us. I didn't choose to come here, right? And so why am I getting checked into Hotel California and I'm never allowed to check out and they're allowed to walk all over me? Says who? Says who? That makes no sense to me whatsoever. If anyone else in my life was treating me as horribly as my parents did, everyone that loved me would be like, run, run.
That's
So
it.
it's all cultural. It comes down to the pain of our family is one thing, but the pain from culture doubles the dose rather than giving us the antidote. We don't get any support. Too many children I see every day in law and crime that have to testify against their parents.
Oh my God, I can
There's a little
imagine.
girl on right now. There's some woman, I don't know, they did body pickups or something for morgues, and I just happened to come by this little girl testifying against her mom, and she was, and the mom was giving her the narcissistic stare and then talking to her attorneys. This girl was so terrified. I was in tears. So, and there are people that will still say, I know, but it's her mom. Okay, but her mom murdered somebody and
That's
said,
it.
if you don't behave, you're going to end up just like your dad, whom this mother shot. She says that to her child. So
Wow.
you have to understand that not everybody has it that extreme. Mine was far more covert, although my dad was very physically abusive when he was alive. Um, no one gets to tell us when we're abused enough.
Yeah,
Your
that's
body will
exactly.
tell you. Your body will tell you.
In our podcast, we talk about mastering your communication before you're committing to a serious relationship. So, what are some boundaries mistake people make early in the relationship that they have to be aware of?
Like in a love relationship or
I
like,
mean, listen, I feel like me and you were gonna talk about this, but I think loving yourself. My goal is all about that. Love comes from you, but when you love yourself, it affect the other relationship. Like you said, you're a happy mother, but let's just say in romantic relationship, let's
mhm.
slow it down for people that are think they're good with their parents, but they start romantic relationship and fall in love with somebody.
Okay, so what I would say is what you need to know about science is that you cannot tell the difference between someone newly in love or high on cocaine on a brain scan. So for 18 months, your brain is going to not be any different than high on cocaine. So you need to be with someone for 3 years because if you still like this person after the first 18 and you still like them the second 18, then you have to do that. And one thing I would say that mistakes I made is because I had so much trauma, I opened up way too fast about my story to many men, and they used it as a weapon against me later. No one needs to know your story up front. I've been with someone for 9 years. I actually had my second date with him the weekend after I was cut off from my family, and he knew something was wrong, and I didn't tell him for 9 months because my pain, and he knew that I'd published a book, and it was my very first book that I'd self-published, and there's a lot of poetry in this book. And I said, do not read it. I said it will not be fair that you get to know me in such a deep way and I won't know you. And I never ever considered that writing a book would be like, and I don't know why, but I didn't think about a prospective man dating reading my book before meeting me. I do, like didn't even clue. Like when my patients come in and they've been on a waiting list for a while, they fully like know me and they're a
No, yeah, yeah.
complete stranger to me, but they don't realize that. I have to remind them, like, just a reminder is I don't know you at all and you know all about me. So we have to like, for me, we really have to start at the beginning, right? Because they just, and I'm very warm and loving and all the things, but like I still don't know that I'm sitting in front of a complete stranger, right? So I never thought about this part of publishing. I just thought it would go out to the ether to a bunch of strangers. I didn't think,
Yeah.
one, I never thought anyone would read my books, but I just didn't think. So you have to open up slow. Trust needs to be earned, not given. And then I would say over functioning. I don't think you need to set boundaries on the person in the beginning as much as you need to set boundaries on yourself. Try not to over function, try not to over give, because now you're setting this precedence that you're going to do the relationship for both of you. You don't want to do that. Just sit back and try to allow life to be good to you. Allow this person to be good to you, to show you who you are. You will learn so much more when you shut your mouth and you use your eyes and your ears in the beginning of a relationship.
I love that. Like you said, I just had a relationship coach I interviewed last week, and we were talking about it, and I was asking about boundaries, and he said like, I said, what's the difference between oversharing and being, honest? And like you said, even though you have this story and people read your book and you're ready, but some people are not ready for that. For them, it's a lot,
100%.
you know?
100%.
Just for that you have to take time because I mean you don't know them, they
Yeah.
don't know you, you don't know them. I mean for you it works out good because now you're like, all my card is on the table, you know who I am. If you want to go with me, whatever, because of your book. But I think oversharing is sometimes can damage the relationship and they can use that against you.
Yeah, and also I would say something I've learned and I write about in my last book as well is we all deserve a secret garden. I mean, there's certain things that even after 9 years that I'm having memory of. And I don't share every detail with my boyfriend. I just don't. If it's something that he would really need to know about me, then that's okay. But I look at it in my new book, Toxic. I built a house, and there's monsters in the basement and emotional crime scene boxes that our family dumped in our basement, so they wouldn't have to own it in there. So their actions get stored in our basement, and it's really cute. And so I talked to him more broadly. Like, let's pretend that I asked him to follow through on something and he got busy and he didn't do it. Well, someone not following through, because I had a low effort, high conflict family, it hurts my feelings, right? It makes me feel
Right.
like it triggers this monster in my basement that you're not important. So abandonment comes up. So he doesn't deserve the reaction of the abandonment monster because he didn't create it. So I have to learn, and this book teaches you how to navigate floors. He deserves the appropriate amount of that monster. So I always take a moment to process what I'm feeling. I try to figure out what monster is up, and then I talk to him in this language. Like, hey, you woke up a monster in my basement, and I'm feeling a little abandoned because I asked you to do blank and I asked you like 4 times. And although I know you're busy, you're not doing it. And so it's upsetting to me and it wakes up this part of me. And he loves it because it doesn't feel so attacking, like you did this or what. So I've created a language in this new book around boundaries and monsters and how we feel. And I just think that I used to give too much detail on my story. And as much as I share in my books, it's a quarter of what I lived through. So I try to share mine equally to other people I know or I've worked with, to give a variety of examples. But not everybody needs to know every detail. Some of those things can just also be for you. And you can talk about those details broadly to make it a little easier for someone else. Like my boyfriend doesn't have really any trauma. So it's been a real growth process for us together because he just couldn't understand it forever.
Yeah.
And as he's been with me for this period of time, now he really gets it. And I hear him speak in my language sometimes. It's really cute.
No.
Um, but I think you have a right to hold things tight to your chest, not because you're ashamed, but you don't want your own pain turned into a dagger and stabbing you later. You just don't.
Yeah, because the trend is that to show transparency on being vulnerability and all of that, and that can be misleaded when it comes too soon, too fast, when it comes to romantic relationships. So
100%.
absolutely. So what is your go-to script for someone who wants to say no to the toxic relative without creating unnecessary drama?
Good luck. I think that silence and distance are far more powerful than words. Um, my famous saying is shut your mouth and use your feet. Get your body away from their body. They're not going to respond to words. That's where they are the most masterful. They are the Machiavelli of word salad, right? Because you'll go in like, okay, I'm going to set a boundary because like 1 + 1 is 2. I'm ready. You have your PowerPoint, your right tone of voice, the right time of day, the right outfit, right facts. You go in and it's perfect. You will leave like, I don't think 1 + 1 is 2. I think it's the square root of 27 divided by 6 squared pi. Like, you can't have a rational, reasonable conversation with someone who is using misunderstanding as a game to trap you. So, what I would really want people to think about is boundaries, the way the literature writes about them, they're misunderstood. They're understood as getting people out. I believe wholeheartedly boundaries are about keeping people in. So if someone hurts you and you tell them when you do blank, it really hurts me, someone who loves you will say, oh my God, I am so, so, so sorry. I would never want to hurt you in this way. I did it this way because of this, but now I understand you, and that's probably not the right way to do it. So going forward, I'll do Y instead of X. Every time you set a boundary, you're giving someone a beautiful, gorgeous opportunity to stay in your life. So every boundary you set, and I set as many as I could possibly make up because I started making shit up after a while to try to keep them in my life. The message was is they didn't want to be in my life. And they've really never tried any genuine repair. I think they're more worried about their image and then, oops, I wrote books. Oops.
No,
Like
it makes difference.
it, yeah.
Let's just talk about that because a lot of today's generation, a lot of young male and female, they're getting into a relationship, and I believe that I personally believe that some of them are in a narcissistic
Yeah.
relationship. Now they don't know it. What
Yeah.
is your advice for them? That how do they know that they're in a unhealthy relationship and they have to, like you said, either leave or do something about it? What are some signs?
Some signs are moving the relationship too fast. If you're hearing you're my soulmate in week one, you better watch out. You need to set the pace. Do not let the narcissist set the pace. And if you start pacing it and they don't like it, and they either get angry or they push, you're not in the right space. Um, the pace is really important in the very beginning, especially those first 3 months. The pace should be slow. It should be exciting because that's a great time. But if they're pushing sex, if they're pushing, let's go on a vacation in 2 weeks, you're my soulmate, all of those things within 3 months, I would
Mm,
really be wary of that. They don't know you to know that. Are there rare cases of love at first sight? Certainly there are. But I would read a book called Manipulated by a guy named H.G. Tudor, Tudor. And HG is just, the H and the G. So those are the 25 ways that narcissists really manipulate you in a relationship. Okay, so inconsistencies also. So they love bomb and then they disappear. And
mm.
then you're left like, oh, what happened? What happened? Then they come back, love bomb you again. So you have to watch out for anything extreme. And remember, your high on cocaine brain is going to justify all of it because you like how you feel. So slow down. Just when I was first with Scott, I'm like, I'm going to slow down. And by that point, I was like, relationships just scare me. So now it's not hard. But when I was a young little whippersnapper, I was like, I love, you know what I mean? And whoo, girl, I got eaten alive. So
Yeah, because I hear a lot of time their fear is that he will leave me.
yeah, so I did nothing but study men for my ladies for 5 years. I would really listen to Brian Knox. Um, I would look at Christian Carter. I would read books, Why Men Love Bitches. Um, Bitch being babe in total control of herself. It's a great acronym. And a lot of women will go, I know, but that's playing games. Well, everything is playing a game. If you want a book published, you've got to do some things to make that happen. If you want a bigger private practice, for example, there's things you have to do. Everything is some form of action to get what we want. But be knowledgeable because what saves my relationship currently is that men, particularly, they don't respond to words. They respond to distance. Okay, so if he's angry and you guys are fighting it and then you start yelling at him, women are always going to get a little more dramatic and then he'll just point the finger at you and delete what he did. So if he's angry, you need to leave him there. Leave him in the anger. You go be quiet, use your feet, shut your mouth. Give it a few hours. Believe me, he'll be like, right? Like you want to train him a little bit that you're not going to be stepped on. A lot of people allow themselves to be stepped on, men and women. Anyone toxic is going to short circuit when you don't give them the words that they can manipulate you with. Just shut your mouth and use your feet. They know when they're wrong. Whenever that happens with my partner, he ends up reaching out, let me know when you need to talk, and I'll say, I want to process it for a day or two. And he'll say, okay, because we only see each other every other weekend. So then it will be, he'll say goodnight. I say goodnight. I don't
Right, right, right.
stonewall the guy because he knows that I'm upset and we'll talk about it on our next weekend. Learning to communicate in that way keeps you in control of you instead of trying to control this other person with your words. And, I had a male patient come in last week, and it's a long-term marriage. He's very unhappy in the marriage. And they had an issue where she got upset with him because she broke some kind of a rule. And he's like, I'm not mad, but I'm going out with the guys tonight to a comedy show. I just want to have fun. So she call, hang up, call, hang up, call, hang up. Don't do that. Don't do that. It's important that men and women learn to let the other one run off leash. Just let them run off leash for a little bit, because they'll figure out that they want to run next to you, right? So it does
Mm.
require a tremendous amount of self-control and self-trust to learn to be patient when things are in conflict.
Yeah, absolutely. And,
Okay, so I play tennis and pickleball,
okay,
and they're very different. So with tennis, you want to hit that ball really hard. You
right.
want to get to it fast and hit it hard. In pickleball, you want to get to it fast but hit it really light. With relationships, get to it fast but hit it really light. Just hit it light. Find that self-control.
No, I'm glad that you said that, and I love what you said that you study about men, like how
Yes,
men and women are different. Do you know that how many people they treat men and women, they treat each other the same? And this is what I teach. I actually have. I'm in the process of writing it, that the how to speak to women versus men, or vice versa, because girls thinks that men are like their girlfriends. They
they
treat
want
them
them to
like,
respond like a girl.
yeah,
They
and guy
can't.
thinks that girls are like a dude.
Yes. Yes.
Especially in today's society, I've seen so many, because like I told you, our listeners are the young people, and they send questions and they ask, and I see the similarity, how they treat each other equally the same, and
Yeah.
that's not what it is. So give us
No.
some of the difference so the listener can
Yeah.
understand.
So men only use one side of their brain.
Okay.
They do. And they're supposed to be that way. Let's break it down to the sperm.
Okay.
The male sperm, he's fast. Okay. And he also dies within 24 hours.
Mhm.
The female sperm is stronger, slower, and more resilient, and she'll live up to 72 hours.
Right, right.
Same aged men and women, men die 10 years before same aged women. Men are built to have a quick burst and then they need to rest. The last time your husband's going to want to talk to you is right after work or right before bed. Okay? Women use 20,000 more words a day than men. Men can only focus on one thing at a time. Why? Let's look at why. Because we're like, men are so dumb. They're not dumb, they're different. Okay? I love my men. Um, for a man to keep his family alive back in the day, he'd have to get on his horse, go out on the dirt road, and kill a bull. Okay? So if we're calling and texting and he's like mid flight with a knife, he's going to be like, yeah. And she's going to get pissed. I'm not important to you. And we don't think about that in corporate America. They're all out like this. It's not the time to talk to your guy, right? You've got to wait. So we used to when we were waiting for them at camp. And here's what's going on with us. He needs to only use one side of his brain so that he doesn't die while killing the bull. He needs to have 100% of that brain focused on that bull to feed and provide for us. So while they're gone hunting, we have babies. So we use this beautiful thing in the brain called the corpus callosum. It's a little bridge. So we use all sides of the brain. So when they're gone, we're clanning, we're breastfeeding our kid. We've got eyes in the back of the head watching our sister's kid, whatever. We're doing all of this. All of us ladies are doing this. And for us to stay safe because we have babies, our senses, we experience more negative emotion than men ever will or do. We have more neurons in our gray matter, so we notice more negative things. And we also notice if a twig snaps in the forest, in case there's a predator in there and our men are gone and we need to save ourselves. So we'll notice slight nuances and changes in behavior tone of voice, eye contact. So we take so much of what he does personal. When really, maybe he's not being a dick. Maybe he's just being a dude, right? Sorry for the language, but I
No, no,
don't
no, no,
know
no,
what you
no.
said. And I
No, you're
think
right.
that knowing that he's not being a dick, he's being a dude, it allows you to just let go. He doesn't want to talk about the relationship all the time. You know what he wants? He wants to feel good. He wants to have fun. He wants a happy, satisfied person. Is he ever going to fulfill all your needs? No.
No.
Will you need to set boundaries on him and coach him a little how to meet those needs? Yes. But don't browbeat the guy. I had this woman and she came into my office and she's like, ugh, I'm a football widow. And I was like, what is that? Because I love sports. So she
Right.
was like, well, it's football season and my husband never talks to me and I'm not allowed to talk until there's breaks in the game and I'm not important to him. I said, do me a favor. Mid game, no break. Get up and go in the kitchen, read spice labels. I don't care what you do, but get your mind totally off of him. Come back next week, tell me what happened. So she came back in, kind of gave me the shuffle, like, you were right. I said, okay, I know what happened. She goes, Dr. Sherrie, within 30 seconds, he's like, hey, babe, what are you doing? I said, right. He just doesn't want to talk to you. He's mid kill when the game is on. Just let him be there. He wants you with him, but he doesn't want to do it girly. Maybe learn how to like the team. Find a hot guy on the team, like him, and enjoy the game. And it changed their life. It was like that simple, right? So it's ironic that we're treated so differently. Like sex really makes men feel loved. And for most of my women, sex just is sex for us. It doesn't make us feel more loved. Like for me,
Not at
either
all.
at all. Like the sex is fine, but I'm not like dying for it, or it's not going to change my life. You know, Megan Fox on Call Her Daddy was like, have you ever had a magical dicking down? Like, really, has anyone ever changed your life that way? For women, no, but it is that for men. And you have to find that balance as well, right? So we are made so different, but I think it creates so much growth in each of us to understand those differences.
If you look at it that way, it's exciting because you look, learn
Yes.
about each other. That is the
Yes, and then you
coolest thing.
don't have to be so freaking unhappy. There's one book that everyone loves that I love the book itself, but I don't like how it's applied.
Okay.
And it's the five love languages. And let me explain,
Yes,
okay?
I heard
Because
of it.
the way that I see this being applied in my office is causing a lot of trouble in the marriage.
There, yes, please do, because I read that book.
So my love language would be verbal affirmation, okay? Probably verbal affirmation and quality time or something.
Okay.
So I picked the most nonverbal man on the planet, okay? Like literally. For example, when I got my hair done, he's like, wow, that's pink. And I'm like, so you passed your color test today? Like, do we like it? So I asked him, I said, I'm not trying to be like at all condescending, but I just genuine question. Do you know the difference between a compliment or an observation? And he was like, and I said, okay, so when I walk in, girl one walks in, and the husband's like, wow, that's pink. And then husband two is like, wow, baby, your hair looks beautiful. And then Scott started, oh, he's going to kill me. He started laughing. And he's like, you know what? He goes, in my mind, I mean it as a compliment because I love your hair. He goes, when I was young, I would sit in the back of the car and I would just call out what I saw, like Target, Home Depot, McDonald's. And I'm like, so it's point and speak. And it's such a habit. Like he saw my daughter the other day and she had these little aliens on her pajamas. And he's like, those are aliens. And she's like, good job. And I elbowed him. He goes, you look super cute. So it's like he doesn't mean it, but at first I couldn't figure this out. Like I'd come over to be like, wow, that's green. If I had like a green outfit on, I'm like, so do we like it? Like, what is going on? So I used to try and make him use words of affirmation. Gave him the chapter of the book, did all the things. didn't change him. And in fact, it made him feel like nothing else he did counted.
Yeah.
So his way of loving me is acts of service and quality time and physical touch. Those are his things. So now when I'm receiving those from him, I've learned to feel loved. Instead of browbeating him, because I went through that, I did that mistake, and it was making him be someone he wasn't. So I think the love languages are fine. I think they're beautiful. I think it's really great to know what yours are, but really don't try and change your partner to be what they are. Just learn what your partners are so you can see and recognize when you're being loved.
Instead, recognize, that's the key words. Recognize
Correct.
how they give you affection, and it could be like a cup of coffee. It could be like, "Hey, come watch a game with me," you know?
Yes,
And you're like, what? I'm not a dude," but that's his way of saying that I
that's
wanna spend
his
time
way.
with you.
Yep. And I
That is
learned that when I let it go, and I'm like, well, why can't I verbally affirm myself? So I'll come over and go, look, I got my super cute hair done. And he's like, yeah, babe, you look beautiful. If I give it, I just do it for myself now. Like I get ready, I get dressed. I'm like, oh my God, Jeffree Star approved tonight. I'm feeling so cute. And, or I'll make some mistake because I truly am the dumbest smart person you'll ever meet. I have a whole lot of like,
I
I
think
have
we
a
all
whole,
have that.
I have a whole lot of Chrissy from Three's Company in me. And
I love her.
I
I
am
love
her.
her.
I am more her. I get afraid to meet people in public that like follow me because I'm like, I don't know what version they're gonna get.
Sherry, I love her. She was my favorite.
I love her and I'm so her. And like I'll do something ridiculous and he'll be like, babe, I'm like, I know, but I'm super cute. I'm super cute. And so there's this way to verbally affirm yourself that is not egotistical. It's not coming off as I'm so hot or anything like that. It's just, you have to laugh at yourself. And I think that women, because we experience so much more negativity than men, it's not their fault. And I think too often we attribute it to them or something else. We do need to just be aware that our brains take that in more and that there's ways that we can also lighten our own load of that by just self-care or complimenting yourself or laughing or just do the things so that you're whole.
Absolutely, absolutely. No, I love that. Like you said, that this is fun. This is fun. You're meeting
Yes.
somebody, you're learning about them, they learn about you, the little things that's what makes a relationship exciting. But
Oh,
people take
one
it.
more thing I want to say. This
Please do.
is huge.
Okay.
Never sit across from a man or talk to him face to face, ever.
Oh, okay.
Men do very good side by side. When men go to war, they're side by side. Who do they face?
Their enemy,
When they go out on a football field, who do they face?
the competitors.
When they are in corporate America at their business meeting, who are they facing?
Mm,
Guess what? He's ready to fight.
that's it.
Sit next to him or go on a walk, a bike ride, a drive. Movement will open a man up like you cannot believe. We go on hikes, and he himself calls them therapy hikes. I just listen, and he all of a sudden he's like, I get to know all the things. So sit next to him at restaurants. You can lean on him, you can love on him. Don't sit across from him. His brain will turn into it's time to fight.
Very little simple trick, yet so important.
And I told Scott, he has two boys. I have a beautiful daughter, and he's got two wonderful boys. And I'm like, if you discipline them, take them outside, change their physiology, walk with them. They're a lot more, they're going to tell you a lot more moving and walking. Even in my therapy office, I angle my chair
Mm.
because my men, they're not really built for this talk therapy. So I angle it so I can look out a window, I can look this way so it's not so direct. So that to me is so much more powerful because you're next to him and he's not having this enemy opponent thing going on in his brain that he can't help it.
It makes so much sense because in
Yeah.
school we sit in front of the teacher and we hate it.
Yes. Yes. So get him moving or sit next to him and it will just go so much better.
Like that, Sherry. Thank you so much for being here and sharing
I
this
adore
amazing.
you. You're welcome. Thank you for having me. That was so fun, and
Yes, yes,
I
definitely. We definitely do
appreciate
bring
it.
you back, and I appreciate your time.
Yes, I would love to come back.